Peace, peace and love to everyone. This is Adrian. Today, we're going to talk about Lower and Upper Egypt, and we're just going to really talk about Egypt in general. But y'all know how we do. I know I'm really late, but I was really prepping for class. Make sure I was hitting all my dots and crossing all my T's. But nonetheless, we are here. So y'all know how we do. We first start off with an African proverb, and we're going to get into that. And then after we get into that, we'll go into the lesson. I got my bamboo pointer today, so I'm going to be using that for class. I know that you can't really see that well, but I'll talk loudly so that way you can get the full lesson, and I'll show depictions as well. So we got a lot to cover, so I'm going to go over it. So to begin, we're going to start off with the African proverb. As I said, I'm going to read it aloud. So it says, a certain rich man owned much land, and years after his farms produced large crops. Soon, he didn't know where to store them all, He thought to himself, what am I going to do with all these crops? Where am I going to store all of them? Then he said, I know what I will do. I will tear down the barns and build bigger ones, and then I'll have plenty of room for my crops. After that, I'll retire and take life easy and have all I want to eat, drink, and be happy. Now, that's a powerful story. The universe, when you have so much to give, or if you have abundance of things, we want to share. But this man obviously is not going to share. So the moral of the story is that whatever you do, the universe sends it back to you tenfold. So if this man doesn't want to share his crops with everybody and just keep it to himself, he may lose out on all of that, because he's not sharing anything with anyone else. But as long as you're giving back to the earth, you'll get back more than, you'll get back tenfold. But if you keep and hoard, it's like your hand. If you want to receive something, you got to have it out, to get it. And you got to have it out to give. But if you just keep it a tight fist, you can't even give out nothing or receive anything. So I think that's the moral of that story. So yeah, I always like to read an African proverb or an African story to have you guys ponder on these things when it comes to your life or when it comes to things in general. So yeah, that's the moral of that story. But to get into the lesson, I wanted to talk about Lower and Upper Egypt, or Lower and Upper Kemet, or Tamari, because that's also the name of it as well. People used to call it. But to start off, I want to say that Kemet, which means, we already know, it means black soil, or it means land of the blacks, or black crossroads. So that's what that word Kemet or Kemet means. And Kemet didn't have any vowels, so it's KMT. A lot of people spell it different ways. K-A-M-U-T, K-E-M-E-T. So it's different ways that people spell it, but we didn't have any vowels. So that dates back to at least 7,000 to 10,000 BCE. But however, Kemet actually flourished in 3100 BCE. And a guy by the name of Menaz, he actually was the founder of Lower and Upper Egypt. Now, we do know that Lower Egypt is really the north part of Egypt, and even though it's it's called Lower Egypt or Lower Kemet, it still represents the north because the Nile River, flowed down or flowed through, so that way it can cultivate the land. You know, it never, remember in my last lesson, it never, it always was able to, you know, have these different great rainfalls and different sorts, heavy rain. It never missed that. So the land was rich in soil. So they was able to cultivate. Irrigation systems was out of this world. All of that. So that's why that's called north. But then there's upper Kemet as well, which is south. So in the south of Kemet, you got a lot of connections that came from Sudan or Ethiopia, because that is in the south of Africa. So that a lot of them pay homage to the south, and they call themselves children of the south because they knew where they came from. But anyway, Nomar Menez, there are statue depictions of him that show him, but there is little known about his life. It's just known that he was the founder of, the founder of North and Lower Kemet. After his rulership, 30 dynasties came into existence, and that lasted for at least anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 years of rulership. Dynasties meaning kings and queens ruling together. You know, people such as Aten and Queen Nefertari or Nefertiti, excuse me, because those are different individuals. Queen Nefertiti, they were in rulership together. That would be an example of a dynasty, okay? And then Pharaoh, he was the Pharaoh, which is what his name is, Aten. He also, that means great house. So that's what Pharaoh means. And I also want to say too, in upper and lower Kemet, what they lived in was called a monotheistic, polytheistic religion or philosophy, meaning that one God births many other gods. And I know oftentimes people, look at Ra as being the sun god, which he is, and he is much appreciated. And a lot of our ancestors didn't, worship him per se. The sun was a representation of you being kissed with your melanin. So the sun, they acknowledged the sun for that. We pulled in the sun because of our melanin. So we didn't worship the sun. Don't get it twisted. We were in tune and immersed with the sun. We pulled it in, So that's that. And then I also want to say too, with the monotheistic, polytheistic religion, I'm going to read an excerpt from the Kemetic Tree of Life, which gives the birth creation of that. And then we'll talk about the Noonian Theurgy as well. I'll read that here in a minute. But I wanted to say something. So going back to monotheism or monotheistic, polytheistic religion or philosophy, Noon is the water goddess, and she has a boat that she holds like this for all the gods that are created, that are a part of the Noonian Theurgy. And I'll show you a depiction of that. But she is the one that guides them. She's the one that's guiding Ra and Nut and Asar, Jehudi, Maat. She's the one guiding them. So that she is the mother of the creation. Even though we always look at Ra, sun, as Ra being the sun goddess and being the numero uno, she was the one, like I said, that guides them. And I'll show you a picture of her in the book of the Kemetic Tree of Life here in a moment. So give me one moment to actually pull that up, and I'll also show you the depiction of the map depiction of Upper and Lower KMT as well. So just give me one moment. Give me one moment. Give me one moment. One moment, y'all. I'm gonna show you. Here she go. Here she go right here. You see her? She right there. She guiding the boat in the water. That's her right there. There she is. There she is. She right there. She's guiding all 10 of the guys, excuse me. And we're going to go through that story. I'm going to read that excerpt here in a moment so you guys can understand the Anunian Theurgy, which is the mythological creation of existence between the gods, spirituality, and nature. And also it represents the starting point. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. So here, give me one moment to pull up that. And then I'm going to show you a map too. So I want you to see that. And then we're going to go over some time periods here in a moment too. So give me one moment. All right. All right, so this is an account that I'm reading from the Kemetic Tree of Life. I'm going to read it so you guys can hear me. All right. So the account of the creation of gods and goddesses of creation according to the creation theurgy of Anun and the account of Plutarch. In the beginning, there was the ocean, Nu, and from it arose Ra. See, that's Ra right there. He came after. Okay? Upon his emergence, this magnificent God created all that came into being from his own self. He existed within his creation as one exists within one's own body, excuse me. He sneezed, and spat nut, and they in turn gave us nut or nut and Jeb. The goddess Nu and the god Jeb were united in amorous embrace since they had loved each other so deeply from the beginning of time. Their embrace was so close that no other living being could exist in the world. From their union, Nu became pregnant, but Ra had decreed that they should be separated and that Nu could not give birth in any month of the year. At this time, he decided to retreat as an active participant in his creation, to abide in heaven wherein all who seek him must go. From this position, he supported creation as it transverses in the form of the sun, making it possible for life to exist and flourish. You see that? He says form of the sun. So that's a form of of somebody giving birth. It's symbolic to a son or a child, you know, that comes into existence. Okay? So in the morning, he is known as Kepler. At noon, he is known as Ra. And at sunset, he is known as Tim. Also from here, he witnesses all of the activities and events of creation. In his absence, he created Jehudi. That's also Thoth as well. The Greeks gave him that name. His messenger, through him or through whom he, Ra, would manage and sustain his creation. Ra instituted himself as the sustainer of creation during the day and illumines creation as the sun, while setting Jehudi up in the form of the baboon to watch over creation at night as the moon. According to Ashwar Quasi, If you look on the pyramids, there are 24 anthropomorphic baboon creatures, and that is symbolic to time, the time of the day. So that brings me to my next point. In 4236 BCE, the calendar was created, including the leap year as well. So that goes into that. So there comes time. Okay. So let me keep on going over this. Having become pregnant as a result in the sexual union with Jeb, Nun gave birth to Asar, Set, Aset, Nebdat, and Uhuru. Jehudi, who, being wise and caring for Nun, was able to win the seventh part of each day of the year, and to have these added up and added to the year. All right, let me go on to the last part of it, last bit of it. These epicomenial days, or the 5 days over the year, he added to the 360 days of which the year formerly consisted. These 5 days are to this day called the Empagomene. That is the super added, and they are observed as the birthdays of the gods. On the first of these days, Asar was born, and he came into the world as a voice was heard saying, "The Lord of all, Nebuchadnezzar, is born." Upon the second of these days was born Uhuru, or Uhuru the elder. Upon the third day was born who came into the world, neither at the proper time nor by the right way, but he forged a passage through a womb, which he made his mother's side. Upon the fourth day, a Set was born in the marshes of Egypt, and upon the fifth day, Nebdat was born. As regards the fathers of these children, the first two are said to have been begotten by Ra, Isis by Jehudi, and Set and Nebdat by Jeb. Therefore, since the third of the superadded days was the birth date of Set, the kings considered it to be unlucky, and in consequence, they neither transacted any business in it, nor even suffered themselves to take any refreshment until the evening. They further add that Set married Nebdat, and that Isis and Asar, having a mutual affection, enjoyed each other in their mother's womb, even before they were born. And that from this union sprang Uhuru the elder, whom the Greeks called Apollo. See, the Greeks stole most of our gods. We're going to talk about the period here in a minute, but let me read the last bit. Asar and Set gave birth to Uhuru, and Asar and Nebdat gave birth to Ampu, aka Anubis. All right, so that explains the birth of the gods, and let me actually show you. I showed you guys last time, but I want to show you again the depiction of all these gods so y'all can see them. Here's one depiction right there of all of them. This is all of them. That's Ra, spirit, fire god, Shu, space, ether, air, Tefnut, life force, water, Nut, which is heaven, Jeb is the earth, Asar is eternity, soul. We already did a lesson on that. Aset is wisdom, immortality, and then Set. So there's Aset, which is a goddess. She is wisdom and immortality. And then there is Set, which is egoism. And then there's Nebdat, which is mortality. And then there's Uhuru, master of the earth. Okay? And let me go to the depiction so y'all can see a better up-close version. You see that? Y'all see that? And there goes Nu right there. She right there. She's guiding them. She's always gonna guide. You know what I'm saying? And this is the sacred geometry or Kemetic tree of life chart that these guys have right here, along with their symbols. Okay. So I know y'all can't really see it that well, but do your best to look. I'm gonna give y'all some time to look at it. See? So this is Anunian Thurgy, the creation. Okay? Let me see if I can show y'all a few more before we so let me show you the individual depictions of them. All right. Here goes the different types of Ra, sun god. He's the sun god. Remember, he represents morning, noon, and then evening. You know what I'm saying? So that's him. There's Shu. Let me turn to the next page. And then we're going to go back right into it. I just want y'all to see these depictions. Tefnut or Tefnut, and then the god Jeb. Okay, and let's go to the next one. Goddess Nut, and then the god Asar. Okay. The goddess of Set, and then the god Set. You see him right there. And then the goddess Nepathat and the god Uhuru. See him? That's the depictions right there. Okay? All right. So now let's get back into the lesson. I want to go over the periods because I want y'all to see things, put things more into perspective. We got to go back to this other chalkboard so y'all can see this. So y'all can see what we doing. You know what I'm saying? Okay? I know this is not the best angle, but I'm going to speak loud enough so y'all can see it. I left my bamboo one down there, so I'm going to use this instead. Okay? Let me scoot it back to even further so y'all can see me and stuff. All right? So, like I was saying, I'm going to go over the brief timeline. And after I go over this timeline, I'm going to go over the common themes. Okay? So, oops, I spelled this wrong. Let me write this. Alright. Okay. Alright. So, now, this is a brief timeline of the invaders excuse me, I wasn't in the camera. So, this is a brief timeline of the invaders, and I'm going to read this out loud. Okay, so you got the Greeks, which is the Hellenistic period. So the reason why that is known as the Hellenistic period is because Alexander the Great was a young, inspiring soldier, king that came through and conquered over 100-something territories. They didn't have nothing in Greek really to live for and everything. So they came over as invaders to conquer, Kemet. And during this time, that was called the Hellenistic period. He was very ambitious. And by 20 years old, he conquered like over 100-something territories. He ended up dying at like it's argued between 32 and 33. He was either poisoned or it's many different speculations that surround his death, but he conquered so much territory. He was power hungry, and a lot of his soldiers didn't really want to, go through with it no more, because they realized that he was just arrogant and just wanted to, conquer everything. And then the Greeks, they brought over Saturnalia. Saturnalia is pretty much when they would celebrate, have orgies, and beat their wives and get really drunk and all of that. And that's something that they brought over to Egypt, and Egypt became perverted, so so that's pretty much the Greek period. And the Roman period also was it involved as well, along with the Christian Byzantine rule. And this time, the timeline for that is 30 BCE to 638 BCE, which means before Common Era. Okay, so that's what BCE stands for. And the Christian Byzantine rule, they came over as invaders. The Romans, they came over as invaders as well. They came over, they brought Christianity over here, over to Kemet. You see this, the Christian symbol, the cross. It is a carbon copy of the Ankh. Okay, so the cross is a representation for holy wars and them being the chosen people, and they created this this identity of race being superior and inferior. So the identity, or the idea of race, is a myth, because a lot of people during the time were identified by their regions. But that's when all that stuff came into existence, because a lot of these guys just wanted to rule over people and just pillage people, because they didn't have anything. They didn't have any type of knowledge. A lot of Timbuktu and which is the oldest university, a lot of people will say, according to John Henry Clark, they will say, they burned all of it down and left it with nothing. But really, in reality, they didn't burn all of it down. Some of what of that knowledge in those books, they took back to Greek and Rome, and they had their people, would take the information, and then they would revise it and create it in such a way that would help their society flourish. Because they was ruled by the republic. You know what I'm saying? They had a republic society. Versus, what we had was an agrarian society. They were very militaristic. They came up through military. They trained their sons and daughters to come into kingship or rulership in that fashion. That's how they ruled things. You know what I'm saying? So that's how that went down between, I told you the dates is 30 BCE to 638 BCE. And now let's go back to the next timeline, the Caliphate and Mamelukes. The Caliphates were predominantly Islamic. The Arabs, they were very treacherous towards Africans as well. The word Caliph means to a Muslim, a person that follows God, that submits to God. And the Mamelukes, just to talk about them briefly, they were slave soldiers. they were forced into war. They was forced to be invaders. They was forced to just train and fight. You know, that's what the Mamelukes was for. You know, they always did that. And that timeline for the invaders of Egypt or Kemet is between 642 to 1517 ACE. And ACE stands for after Common Era. I know a lot of people typically say, or not anymore, people typically say BC or AD, but moving forward now we say BCE or ACE. So BCE stands for before Common Era, and ACE stands for after Common Era. So that's the Caliphate and the Mamelukes, just to give you a little brief history about that. Now we want to move on to the Ottoman domination. That time period is between 1082 to 1882 ACE. And a Sultan man named Osman I, he was the ruler during that time. He conquered a lot of Persia, India, and all of that. The same common thing. They didn't have nothing. They aligned themselves with the French. They had the same common interests of invading other people and political interests as well. So it was easy for them to team up and to gain so much territory in a mass amount of time. Or in the quickest amount of time, excuse me. All right, so then we go to the British colonialism period, and then France is also involved too. We already talked briefly about how France shot off the nose of the Sphinx because Napoleon was so in awe that the Sphinx had Africanoid or Negroid features. So they are part of this as well. They're not exempt. So the British colonialism rule happened between 1882 to 1955 ACE. So that's more modern. And the reason why that happened is because by this time, you know, Egypt is being the number one source of wealth. They are seen as the prize. You know what I'm saying? African people have always been great hosts to other people. But they always took advantage of us because we were not militaristic. We were more agrarian. You know what I'm saying? We lived up by Maat philosophy, law and order, universal laws and spiritual laws. That's what we ruled by. They didn't rule by that. They ruled by rocks and iron and steel and all of that. That's what they ruled by. But anyway, I want to get back to the British colonialism. So by this time, British they had vested interest, and Egypt was 100 million pounds in debt. So it was a guy by the name of P.M. Disraeli in 1875. He had bought 44 shares from Egypt to the UK, and that they had 80% exports to the UK, and only 5% of the UK exports went to Egypt. So they got further. It was only a losing situation for Egypt during this time because they were in debt, and like I said, they had vested interests. You know what I'm saying? And because of the Suez Canal, which they kind of got into that in 1869, and they had no legal basis with this. They just took it over for self-gain. You know, so that's what that was. The Suez Canal was responsible for bringing in for cultivation and agriculture and all of that good stuff. So they had made major investments in that. Now, moving forward to the Arab Islamic Egypt, That's more present, 1952 to the present. You see now, if you go to Egypt now, Egypt don't look like how Nubians look now. You know, Nubians and Ethiopians, they're more Arabic. You know, that's because the Arabs, like I told you, go back to the Caliphate and the Mamelukes and the Ottoman domination. You go back in time, that's why. You know, they had took it over it and ran it down. But prior to that, Egypt reigned. Egypt was the most sophisticated society for at least 2,000 to 5,000 years. Had 30-something dynasties. So, but like I said, by this time they had been ran down. So we pretty much know that's self-explanatory. But the common themes that you notice in this timeline, I want to go over that, is heathenism, imperialism, colonialism, and militarism. Excuse me. So those are the common themes that you see within these time periods. And we ain't even go through, you know, the pre-dynastic era and all of that yet. We're going to say that for next lesson. But yeah, that is what you see within this culture. And I also wanted to talk about Ptolemy. Ptolemy, I believe it was the 14th. He was the son of Ptolemy the 12th. He was put to death by Octavian, or the Roman ruler known as Augustus. And Augustus, during the time, he was the grandnephew of Julius Caesar. That man was so ambitious that, you know, like I said, he really was a Greek ruler. Ptolemy was a Greek ruler. He wasn't an actual descendant of Nubia. But my point is, Augustus put him to death, and this was all for Rome gain. This wasn't this had nothing to do with empowering Egypt in any type of way. Anyway, Ptolemy, it's argued that he either died because Cleopatra the 7th, which was his wife, she married him. It's known that it's argued that she married him for political gain to, you know, have rulership in Egypt, because she also ruled over Rome. You know, and she was married to somebody else in Rome. So, you know, so she was in a polygyny relationship, you know. So, polygyny, excuse me, I said that wrong. Polygyny relationship between Ptolemy and the 14th and some other ruler in Rome. But anyway, it is said that she could have killed Ptolemy, because soon after she married his nephew Ptolemy the 15th. So yeah, that is argued and stuff. But she did rule in Egypt, Cleopatra. We already know that. But she was not a descendant of Nubia or Ethiopia, so she wasn't really an actual Kemet. She wasn't an authentic one, you know. She still has, you know, the European background of being an invader and a conqueror of Kemet. But that pretty much sums up this lesson. I hope that you guys were able to get something out of it and learn more about your history. Also, actually, before we go, I want to show you some map depictions. I did say I was going to show you some map depictions. So let me show you that, and then I'm going to end the lesson. But I want to show you that really quick. Give me one moment. All right. All right. So you see, this is Sudan, and that's Ethiopia. Okay? You see that right there? That is lower than the Nile, you know, or the Nile runs through Sudan and Ethiopia. Okay? So that is, and then this is Egypt. They have United Arab Republic, but it's Egypt right there, or Kemet. All right? And that show, this is the map of that. I wanted to show you that. And here is the early map of Lower Egypt and then Upper Egypt. You see Kush is at the bottom at the time. And then even up here, even though it's not up here, this was known as Chim. Up in this area, Chim, and that is or Kim, which is the root word of chemistry. So we created astronomy, chemistry, medicine, all of these different things because, you know, we cultivated all of these things. You know, that we were the masters of this, of knowledge. We had to be, because we study nature, we study everything around us, and that's why we were able to build so monumental things. And I also want to show you another map. Hold on. So this is another map right here. Like I showed y'all before, this is another map. You got different cities going around here. There's Memphis, there's Heliopolis, there's many different ones you see there. But the main ones, especially when it comes to the theurgy, A is Heliopolis, B is Memphis, and C is Thebes. Those are the Greek names. Now, if you want to know the African names of those, let me give you those African names. So number A, or letter A, excuse me, is Anu, which is the starting point. We talked about that before. Is the starting point right here. It's also known as Heliopolis. B is Memphis, okay, which is another early city. That is Hecapata. That is known as that. Hecapata is B. And the last one is C, Thebes, okay? C, Thebes is the Greek name, but the Kemet name is Waset. Waset. Okay, so Thebes is down here. I know y'all can't really see it, but Thebes is down here. That's the low. That's south. Memphis and Heliopolis, they are further north. So this is the representation of Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Remember, Upper Egypt is south. Lower Egypt is north. Okay, so you got the Mediterranean Sea, and then you got the Nile coming down for cultivation, like I was talking about earlier. Okay, so you know, Egypt has always been the prize for everybody. You know, everybody wanted a piece of Egypt because, or just Africa in general, because, you know, it's the prize, you know, it's the motherland, you know. So I just wanted to end on that, and I want to throw out this disclaimer. The purpose of us studying knowledge like this, or studying this history, is because the Kemet mystery system is there for our culture, history, and our legacy. And then on top of that, we discover, you know, our principles through nature and through spirituality. And we no longer want people to tell our narrative. You know, we have an Afro-centered narrative, not a Eurocentric centered narrative. So we want to make sure that we eliminate revisionist historians or romanticize history or politicize history. I want to make emphasis on that. We want to tell our narrative in a respectful and proper manner, you know, because this is the real deal. We not playing no games, you know. This is the real deal. This knowledge has to be taken seriously in order for us to know thyself. And that's something I want to end on actually too. I know I keep on saying I'm going to end, but I want to show you a depiction of know thyself, and then I'm going to end it. And then I'm going to show you the symbols, okay? All right. So, this is know thyself, all right? So it says ret, I am, eb, I. And then these are the symbols, you see them? This is the whole hieroglyphic symbology of know thyself, okay? Know, I in, heart, mind. I know what is in my heart, or I know myself, okay? So always remember that. You always have to know yourself and know your history and know your roots, okay? I want y'all to take that and run with it, you know, all right? So, I'm really going to end it this time. Peace and love to everybody. I hope that, like I said, you gained something from this. And please share, like, and subscribe. We need your support. Not just, I know a lot of you guys can't make it here early. We appreciate everybody that watches and tunes in. I will be posting this on Facebook, so share it, subscribe, and everything. Peace and love and light. Namaste, Ashe. One love.